Hello and welcome to The Ripple Impact, the podcast where we dive into those fascinating, unexpected ripples that change everything. Today I am so excited to introduce to you Adrianne Carter. She is a global expert in body language, emotional intelligence and behavioural insights. She's helped brands like Unilever refine their visuals. She's trained AI to read humans' emotions more accurately, and she's the creator of Asset CQ, a tool that helps brands measure the emotional impact of their imagery. Her career has taken her from working with C-suites to being featured on This Morning and talking on the TEDx stage. Adrianne's journey has been anything but linear, filled with powerful ripple moments. From chance conversations to spontaneous TikTok posts, she has transformed her business overnight. Adrianne, welcome to the show. It is such a joy to have you here. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Lovely to be here.
I'm so excited. We met about 20 years ago, right?
Yes, a long time. We're not old enough, neither of us, I'm sure.
No, we're absolutely not. That's right. I know. So take us way back. I'd love for our listeners to learn a little bit about your career today and what brought you to where you are now.
So it's a bit of a random one. As you quite rightly said, it's not been linear. I had no big life plan. I had my children quite young. I didn't want to go back to full-time work. I was working in the planning department of a concrete company. I built the Channel Tunnel, by the way, on my computer as a planning assistant.
That's quite a claim to fame.
I know, I'm keeping that one. I didn't want to go back to that when I had the children, but I still wanted to work. I lasted about 2 years before I decided I wasn't a stay-at-home mum. That was not for me. And somebody said to me, chance conversation, why don't you go into market research? And I was like, I've never heard of market research. And
I haven't either, by the way.
No, never heard of it.
Bad, isn't it?
And actually, it really ticks a lot of boxes for me. I soon realised I actually really like people. I love understanding what they do, why they do it, the behaviours, the motivations. And while I was working as a freelancer, I was introduced to somebody who'd got a small research business, Shopping Behaviour Explained. I was training at night school to be a counsellor and psychotherapist. And I'd said to the owner of the business, market research could be so much better if we just use some of these counselling skills. Some of the big companies that I worked for as a freelance interviewer, you'd get a questionnaire. It was already pre-coded. So it didn't really matter what somebody said because they'd already decided what the answers were. And actually, that should never be how research is done if you really want to go underneath the skin of it. So the rest, as they say, is history. I got really interested in behaviour, why people do what they do. I went to America 15 years ago and trained in the facial action coding system, which it was my personal interest, something I wanted to do. We did use it as a business as well, but it was really my thing. And then I just kept training on facial expressions. Then I did personality of the face. Then I did some training in body language. And 10 years ago, I started my own business. So I became the face whisperer.
It's the best title. Honestly, it's one of the best titles. Tell us about that. Tell us about that story. How did that come
I can't
about?
claim the name. So I went to Unilever to one of my clients there from my former life in the research world. He said, come and have a cup of coffee with me and tell me what you're doing now after I'd left. And I said, well, I'll come for a coffee, but I have no idea what I'm doing now. I kind of want to do something with the face, but I just don't know. And while I was there having a coffee with him, he said to me, I've just got this key visual. Can you have a look at it? I don't think it's quite right, but I'm not sure what's wrong with it. What do you think? So I talked him through the points that I think he was picking up on subconsciously that were causing alarm bells. And he said to me, you're like the horse whisperer, but for faces, aren't you? And I was like, oh, I really like that. So I became the face whisperer and I've worked with Unilever for the last 10 years, helping them with their key visuals, understand what works, writing reports to help them really optimize the opportunity they have to emotionally connect with their shoppers and consumers.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember right from the days when we were working together all those many moons ago, it was so incredible to watch the footage where shoppers were saying something and you just knew that actually that isn't really what they meant. Even if you weren't a body language expert and a facial coding expert, you could tell that what they were saying wasn't necessarily matching their words. So I remember it being incredible even then, and it's advanced so much since then. What an incredible field to be in.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm very lucky. I love what I do. So I don't often feel like I'm working, to be honest, apart from when it comes to doing all the boring tax stuff and account stuff. That's the bit that reminds me, oh, this is actually a job.
But that's the perfect job though, isn't it? When it's a passion point and it just happens to be your job. How amazing. So what took you from face whispering into then body language? Tell us how that all evolved.
So I trained in body language probably 13 years ago with one of the top body language trainers in the world. We're about to collaborate on something really exciting. Can't say too much about that, but we're about to collaborate on something.
You'll have to come back on and give me the exclusive.
Happy to. I did body language, but I thought, particularly when I started my own business, I'm the face whisperer. Like nobody else really commercializes the face like I do. And I was very proud of that. And so people will say about body language, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do body language, but I'm all about the face. I'm trained to the highest level in the world. I've got all this experience. So I dismissed body language. And then about 3 years ago, I'd just gone onto TikTok making little videos all about the face. Didn't get very far. Had 1,000 followers after about 12 months. And somebody said, but why don't you talk about body language? I was like, because I'm the face. But people get body language. So I did a few videos and it just went bonkers.
Yeah.
TikTok just took off. And I actually thought, oh, people get body language. And I was still talking about the face, but I relabeled it all as body language. And actually my whole business over the last 3 years has completely changed because it's no longer a really difficult sell in anymore because people get body language. They understand. I was doing some training for a global bank actually, but probably about 5 years ago. I'd gone along. We want the whole talk on body language, the whole 2 hours training. We want on body language. I put in half of it as body language, half as face reading.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, she said, I wish you'd now done the whole 2 hours on faces because that is so interesting.
It is
But it's
fascinating.
only after I speak and show people that they get how interested and how useful it is. But body language gets me in the door a lot quicker. So that was another chance conversation that I thought, okay, I'll just give the body language thing. I was qualified anyway, and it's gone bonkers. So
I know, like millions of views on TikToks. It's incredible. I tell you what, though, as a podcast host, when you know someone's coming on as a body language expert and you can see this much, you're like, it's terrifying because I'm now very conscious of my face and my arms and what I'm doing.
It's all right. I'm not analysing you.
Okay, good. That's a relief. So was there a moment where you're like, this is the career for me, this is the path that I want? What was the moment that just the passion and the vision aligned?
From when I left my job 10 years ago to I stuck with it because the amount of times I said to my husband, I'm just going to go and get a normal job. I'm just going to go and get a job because this is too hard. But once I allowed the superiority about the face and just like, yeah, I'm a body language expert, people understood it. That was a really key moment for me about 3 years ago when I accepted the fact that I am a body language expert. I happen to have a speciality in faces, but that doesn't preclude all the other stuff that I know about communication, how we can optimize our communication. So that was the point really 3 years ago where everything just became so much easier.
Yeah.
I am so glad I stuck with this because it's been hard. It's been really hard, particularly the first few years and COVID in the middle. I was just starting to make some traction. COVID came. Everything I was booked for was cancelled. Literally.
Yeah, of course.
Everything.
Yeah, all the events, everything.
Yeah, and went online, which wasn't actually a bad thing for me because online, as you just said, what have we got? We've got this.
Not this much. Yeah.
And on Zoom, don't tell anyone this. Listeners, or watchers, don't tell them this. But on Zoom, you can pin people. So you can exclusively watch the people that you're really interested in. You know, we're not moving away from online completely as businesses, are we?
No. I do find, though, that it's not ever quite the same feeling. Like one day I'll be in a studio with all my incredible guests, but it hasn't got the same.
No.
There's something missing, isn't there, when it's virtual versus in person?
So I did a project last year because I also swore off research for many, many years, and I actually do some research projects again now, and I consult on projects. But yeah, last year one of my clients commissioned a project on virtual meetings versus face-to-face meetings. So I worked along with Katie Hart, who's a neuromarketer, and we analysed the interaction of 50 people doing this. So I interviewed 50 people like this, and then we did the same interview but with 50 people face to face. And she watched the brainwaves, I was watching the body language and the facial expressions, and then we got all the words that they said. And actually face to face wins hands down if you want to build relationships and you want creativity to be sparked. What works really well online is operational stuff, logistics and stuff like this, where it's just not practical to be face to face for every guest that you've had. You've got them from all over the world. So it's remembering what is important face to face, because that's where we get our energy as humans from.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about emotions, right, as such a central crux to body language. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Facial expressions on their own, interesting, useful, but understanding the emotions behind it and the body language stuff, understanding what drives the behaviour. It's always emotions. Emotions drive our behaviour. So if you understand how someone's feeling emotionally, you can then understand perhaps how they're going to react behaviourally. You can then adapt. You can change your approach. If you can see it's not working for them, they don't like something, they do that with their nose, they wrinkle their nose.
Yeah, they go,
They don't like it. So I adapt my behaviour. I adapt my next question. I adapt what I'm talking about to match them. Emotions are so important. And I know brands talk about emotions all the time, but there are very few brands that really get it.
Yeah.
That really get it and use those emotions.
I would agree. It's very easy as a business to talk functionally, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
that's the thing that you've worked so hard on to build, this proprietary technology or this
yeah,
claim or this flavor or this unique combination of. And I think we spend so long as an industry building such incredible products that that's what people want to talk about, rightly.
yeah,
But actually, it's the emotions and the feelings and the connection that
yeah,
really draws you to stories and, as you said, to brands.
yeah.
So I agree. It's something that we don't spend enough time on,
No,
and we don't take probably serious enough. And
no.
another kind of questions that clients come to you with is, have this content, what do you think? But you talked about a shift with Unilever, right? From going to analyzing their content to
Yeah.
what you do now. Can you talk about the journey with them and the questions they come to you with?
That very first key visual that Keith showed me was very much like, tell us what we've done wrong. And I
Yeah.
spent many years telling Unilever, you've created this image, this is why it doesn't work. A few years ago, I said to Keith, we had a great relationship. It would be a much better use of your money and my time for me to help you to get it right, rather than you showing me and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. And that's not
Yeah.
the emotion that you're resonating with shoppers with. And that really changed everything because it saves a lot of time and money. I don't always have to be
Oh, you've
involved
already
in,
shot it, and then you're like, "What do you think?" And you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, you wanted excitement, but actually giving me fear. It's
yeah.
too late."
Yeah, I've been along to photo shoots where I do help direct the talent to show the emotion. I've
Yeah.
trained teams so that they can do it without me if that's their preferred, or they just send me all the photographs and I'll say, right, this one is the one that's going to resonate depending on what their target emotion is and what they want to do with the brand or the
Mm.
product or service. So it's definitely better to get me in nearer the beginning than at the
Yeah.
end. And then I tell you what you've done wrong, because who wants to be told what they've done
No,
wrong?
exactly,
It's not productive,
exactly.
is it? So I'd much rather help brands get it right.
And it's a lovely flip of starting at the beginning with, what are the emotions we're trying to express here? And
Yeah.
starting there.
And the interesting bit that always staggers me is a lot of brands don't even start with that. How do we
Mm.
want our shoppers or consumers to feel when they look at this key visual? How do we want them to feel when they watch this video or advert?
Yeah.
How do we want them to feel? Because that's really is the absolute starting point. Because once you've got that, you can build from that. Most people might not get it all spot on right, but they'll do a lot
Mm.
better if they start with that question rather than the other way around, film it and then go like, oh, what did we want to achieve?
Oh, you should have been with me in some of my key meetings where I'm trying to convince the business that we need to get people to feel something. Like, I'm
Yeah,
obsessed with this
yeah,
nature of getting people to feel something and the emotion of it. That's true in internal communication in terms of
yeah,
inspiring a team and galvanizing an organization, as much as it is communicating to shoppers and consumers, as you said, and really considering that emotion. And if you're spending literally millions in
yeah,
advertising, you get the wrong facial expression, people are not going to take away what
yeah.
you're trying to portray in your advertising. So it's just so powerful.
And the uplifts are well worth it. I did an example for hair care. If you get a 1% uplift in UK female hair care from 19 to 34, you're looking at about 5 million quid. Just a
Yeah.
1% uplift. And I know brands will get at least a 10% uplift.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's
It's
worth
amazing.
doing.
Yeah, people have to check out your TikToks and your Instagram and your posts on LinkedIn, because some of my favorite ones is where you're talking about what you believe that they were trying to portray and actually what you're reading. And it's
Yeah,
fascinating because I don't necessarily see it because I'm the expert. You might look at something and go, oh, it feels a bit off. I don't know why.
yeah.
You would obviously know why straight away. And then as soon as you say it, you're like, yes, of course.
A lot of it is quite obvious if you know what you're looking for. And when I point it out, people go, oh, yeah, I don't know why I never saw it.
Yeah.
They're not trained to see that. I am trained to see that
Yeah.
level of detail. So yeah, I love doing it.
There must be some nuances though, right? Between confusion and concentration. Those
Yeah,
little micro spaces, because often people say, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, sorry, yes, I'm just concentrating. So I
yeah.
must have a really like confused, concentrating face.
So literally today, I've just put a video on LinkedIn about anger and confusion, looking
Yeah.
very similar. It's the same muscle movement
Oh,
that's activated there.
there you
So
go.
am I angry or am I confused? Well, the way to decide is the context. Don't always assume someone's angry. Probably go for confusion first, particularly in a
Yeah.
meeting. Go for
Yeah.
confusion first. And I wouldn't say, oh, Laura, you're confused. I can tell by your face. I'd
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
something like, does that make sense to you, Laura? Because
Yeah.
I'm not calling out the fact I've seen something on your face,
Mm.
but I am giving you an opening to tell me more. I was at an emotional intelligence conference last week for 3 days. It was absolutely brilliant.
Wow.
I know it was so good. We should be emotional researchers, not emotional judges.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to go, oh, I know what that face means. They must feel like so and so. And actually, no, we should be like, Laura, how are you feeling? Not
Yeah.
from my perspective, from your perspective. So being curious and a
Mm.
researcher mentality rather than me judging how you
Yeah.
might be feeling. So questions are the best way to do that.
Yeah, and asking open questions as well, because it's so easy, isn't it, to portray your judgment or your assumption through your questions.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
confused, aren't you? You've told them, you haven't even
yeah.
asked them,
You
let
primed
alone
them
how are you
actually.
feeling.
You primed them.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
At any workshop or speaking events, I show a series
Mm,
of photographs of different faces, and I ask people to just make a bit of a mental note or write down how you think this person might be feeling. And within those photographs, I show two that are neutral. They're nothing. We can't tell anything emotionally. And people perceive these neutral faces either as angry,
yeah.
serial killer, she's really smug, she looks content, get a wide variety of different answers.
Wow.
And what that shows is, and I highlighted to the audience, we all come from our own frame of reference,
Yeah.
how we see the world. So if we're interacting with people from our frame of reference, it doesn't mean we're always getting it right, because we're
Yeah.
seeing what we think they feel like or we think who they are. And
Yeah.
actually, once you understand body language and facial expression, you've got a way of understanding how people really might be feeling rather than my
Mm.
frame of reference.
Is facial expressions universal across countries? Because when you were talking, I was thinking about Italians when they're talking, they're so expressive and they're
Yeah,
so kind of in love with their language, but sometimes it can look aggressive if you weren't
yeah.
really sure. How does culture work when it comes to facial expressions? Is
So
there differences?
the triggers are culturally different, but the way
Mm,
they show the emotion on the face is the same.
right.
But body language is very cultural specific. So the Italians
Ah,
with their hands, it can mean something very different. Someone who is from a cold hemisphere, they're going to be a lot less gesturing, often is
mm,
the case. So it doesn't mean that they feel the emotion less than the
yeah.
Italian who gestures all over the place.
Yeah.
It just means they show it in a different way. But when it comes to faces, I've traveled all over the world, Russia, Singapore, Japan, you name it, I've been there. And faces, I have a good clue as to how people might be feeling. But body language is, the nuances are so different and varied.
Oh, we could go a whole podcast just on that. But tell me just one surprising thing you've learned across cultures when it comes to body language.
So Turkish people
Mm.
will often do that. And
Ah,
that's not a sign of agreement. It actually means no, I
oh,
don't agree.
interesting.
It's actually a rejection. If you're interacting with someone, you don't know what nationality they are, and you've seen a lot of this, but you're thinking, that's really odd because they look like they're agreeing in some way, but everything else tells
We
me
can
they're not
feel the
agreeing.
tone.
It's because it means something very different. A head nod is
More
not
of a
agreement.
dismissive
Yeah,
action than an agreement action.
yeah.
Wow.
Japanese people, they show the same facial expressions, but they're often slower to react. They're very polite culturally,
Yes.
and they will get there on their own time when they show
Mm,
happiness, but perhaps don't get there in the same way as we would in the Western Hemisphere. So it's
yeah.
really interesting, the cultural differences, really, really interesting.
That is interesting. And a lot of organizations have global, regional, local structures. And then sometimes you get global communication from wherever that might be in the
Yeah,
world based on where that global team sit. And then it typically tends to be talent that lives in that region, right? Or in that
yeah,
country. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to translate. Yes, the language, yes, the messaging, but also the body language that's
yeah.
portrayed as well. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I'm working with a global brand. Their head office
Yeah.
is the other side of the world, but one of their main other head offices, their central office,
Mm,
is in Europe. So there are a lot of differences in
yeah.
behavior. And the teams actually at the head office in Europe are multicultural. So there's lots of interesting conversations and trainings that
Yeah.
go on there because they need to optimize their communication skills.
Yeah, internally and externally.
Yeah.
And that's it. A lot of global organizations are such a beautiful cultural melting pot, aren't they? Especially if an organization moves talent around and advocates that kind of movement. So I've always found that so fascinating.
Yeah,
Wow.
which is great and also not so great in some instances. I need to take this across the rest of my business and stop being so precious about being the face whisperer and just embrace the body language as well.
Yeah. The body language pulls people in because that's the point of reference and relatability people could understand. And
Yeah,
then your specialism is the face. It's just people's root in his body language that everyone can watch
yeah,
and enjoy. You've got millions of views on your TikToks because it's fascinating at an individual level, let
yeah.
alone at a corporate or an organizational level. So no wonder.
And I would say that the ripple impact from that is I was very precious about my training and what I could
Mm,
do around the face. And actually, sometimes you just got to drop that, particularly in business. You just got to
yeah.
drop that preciousness and embrace. It's brought me to a brilliant place now, and I love everything I do. Perhaps not under the name I would have liked, but it doesn't matter, does it? Eventually, I'm making the difference that I wanted to do.
You're still
Yeah,
doing the
absolutely.
face with that's your how, isn't it? That's how you're building these insights for organizations.
Yeah.
In your TEDx talk, that if people haven't watched, they must go and watch because it's fabulous. And you talked about earlier about how you showed the different pictures. And I remember when you put them up, I was like, you're trying to guess. And some of them I was like, yes. And then other was like, no, I totally didn't think that was neutral at all.
Yeah.
So people must go and watch your TEDx. It's fantastic. And you talk in that about being intentional with your body language. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of fake it till you make it. However, our minds and our bodies are so intrinsically linked. Sometimes we do have to tell our bodies how to behave, tell our bodies this is what we want to put over. So it's not about faking it, because I'm not a fan of that. And I do believe in authenticity is one of the most valuable properties we've got as a human. When we show up as who we really are, people buy into that. Pictures that people put on LinkedIn, one of my friends put one on last week and it was a bit more casual than she would normally do, a bit less staged. And I said, I bet you got great interaction. She went, it went off the charts. I said, because it was you.
Yeah.
It was authentically you. So you've always got to remember to be authentically you. However, there are things you can do that are intentional. So, for example, this screen, I'm looking at my camera with my chin level. Now, if I got my glasses on, which I do wear all of the time, apart from when I'm on Zoom calls, they're very focal. So what happens straight away, because I'm now looking at you, I'm looking through the bottom, my chin's gone up.
You tilt.
It's not ideal. That's more an arrogance show in body
I was
language.
going to say, what does it tell you if someone's talking?
Arrogance. It's an arrogance
Because it's
signal.
looking down on you. Is it
Exactly
that?
that. Yeah.
Oh,
So
interesting.
although I'm blind, I'll take my glasses off every
So you
time.
can't see me at all.
Well, you're a blur.
Oh, that's fine.
I take my glasses off because I want to come across as confident, natural, and who I am. And then if someone's got their camera lower and they're looking down, that can come across as submissive. So when I talk about being intentional, it's about how do I want to be portrayed? Do I want to come across as confident and authentic, or do I want to come across as arrogant or submissive? I want to come across as who I am, which I am confident. I love talking about this subject and who I really am. So being intentional, people don't often pay attention to their own body language. They think, oh, I learned some body language and I'll read everybody else. Actually, start here. Start with you. What's the message you're sending? I'm talking to a leader in a national company about helping their team optimize the impression they make. You know, they turn up on calls and they're not always, they've got the hair scraped back, and that's fine if you want to do that, but it is sending a message. Come on without any makeup on, come in your scruffs, come in your pajamas, but you are sending a message. And it always starts with here, the impression we want to make.
What advice would you give people on body language?
Well, I'd start with be authentically you. Don't turn up or try to be somebody you're not. I was doing some presentation training a few months ago, and one of the chaps said, I'm never going to present again. Why? And he was like, I've had a terrible experience. And I knew he was a good presenter because I'd already seen him present. And we unpacked why he'd had a terrible experience. And what he'd done, he was speaking at the House of Lords on a topic he knows, but everyone had gone before him and he was the last speaker. And he's normally a bit jokey and has a bit of a banter with the audience. And he didn't do that. He did the formal. And he was really unhappy. Nobody had fed back to him that he'd done a terrible job. They hadn't said that. They were absolutely fine. But he felt so bad in himself. So I always give tips to let people be yourself. If you have got more of a banter type style, then don't eliminate that because you're going to a formal meeting. But make sure it's appropriate to the meeting. Don't start saying things inappropriate because you want to make them laugh, because that never works either. So I ask people to film themselves or to present in front of me with their body language so I can see where they come from naturally. And often it's just a few tweaks. And one of the big topics I talk about is confidence, because if you feel confident inside, it will come out naturally. And often you don't have to change your body language, because once you start to really feel confident inside, it shows itself really easily.
And you know what? It's interesting because whenever I hear body language experts talk about body language and they're asked, what are the tips? Instantly, they go into the technical elements of how to stand, shoulders down and back, relaxed arms, don't flail around, look at your audience. And they very quickly go into the tactics of how to be. What you're talking about is how you feel.
Totally.
And that's fundamentally different. Like, wow.
Yeah. I said to a group of women in finance a couple of weeks ago, this is a question I'm going to ask you now, and I don't want you to answer it now, but go away and think about it. And I said, how much do you like yourself? And I saw there was a bit of like, oh. And I spoke to one of the ladies last week, actually, from that group. She said it hit me like a ton of bricks. Because what I followed up with is, if you don't like yourself, in your brain, you're thinking, nobody else likes me either. I hate myself, so everybody else probably hates me too. How can you possibly feel confident and do your best job feeling like that about yourself? So I say to people all the time, one of the places you should start with is like really getting to like yourself, because your natural confidence will absolutely come over really easily. You don't have to fake it at all, because it will come when you like yourself. And I'm not talking about the happy clappy, look in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful 10 times a day. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about genuinely look for things that you really like about yourself and build on that. If someone sends you a great email, thank you for that work or that project. I keep a little jar on my desk. I'm going to show you now.
Show me.
I'll show you my little jar.
Oh, I
And
love that.
this is actually, I emptied it at the beginning of the year. So when someone says, oh, you really did a good job on that, or I really liked that, it goes in my jar, because we all have these moments of self-doubt where we think, oh, can I really do this? Imposter syndrome hits. Whereas if you've got a jar full of nice comments, you could then start saying, oh, actually, I'm not that bad. Actually, I do a good job. 90% of the time, I do a really good job.
That's so nice.
Yeah, confidence, how we really feel, then shows in our body language.
That's a wow moment for me, because how you feel must then project and how you talk. Because as you said, you can fake it till you make it and you can stand a certain way and present, but you would see it in people's reactions and their emotions. And
what happens is when someone is nervous, and I say to people, if you are really nervous and you're going to present big or small meeting, if you're really nervous and you can't shift the nerves, open with it. Say, I am really nervous to do this today, but I'm going to give you my best shot at this. What happens is your brain relaxes because it's done what it needs to do. Your feelings of nerves have given you the message. You've acknowledged them. The audience sees your bit of vulnerability and they get right behind you. Everybody relaxes, including the speaker. And 9.9 times out of 10, the speaker then goes on to do a brilliant job, because the emotions, all our emotions, they're not good, they're not bad, they're here to give us a message. So once the message has been received, it's been heard, it's been acknowledged, we can relax. It's like magic, actually, that is.
That's incredible, because there's a vulnerability moment, isn't there, when someone does that, and then you root for them. So as a listener, don't you, so dearly, because you're like, come on, you've got this, you can do this, and you can almost sense the energy in the room change of like, go on, you've got this, you can do this. So there's a vulnerability in that, which is lovely. But there must be a physiological change as well. Once you've gone, I've spoken my truth, I've said I'm really, really nervous, and the body can go, it's okay. It's okay. We're out in flight and fight. Let's concentrate. Because sometimes nerves are really good. They give you that energy, they give you the fire in your belly to
perform.
Exactly.
Do what you need to do. So I don't think we should get rid of them, but we do need to acknowledge them so that they don't hijack us. And before I did the TEDx talk, I was so nervous. Like, I literally spent months practicing and releasing the nerves. Like, it's okay. It's all right to be nervous. It's okay to be nervous. But if I'd have let it hijack me, I wouldn't have even got on the stage. I wouldn't have got on that next up.
So what are your tips to do that then? How would other people do that?
So one of the processes I use is called the letting go process. And that is a means of, how do I feel in this moment? Okay, I feel nervous. Out of 10, how nervous were I? For the TEDx talk, I was like 20 out of 10. Okay, that's not useful to me, because that's going to hijack. I'm going to forget everything I've said. So I just feel those nerves, and I just kept feeling it. And I often feel it in my stomach. Other people feel it in other places in their body, but I feel nerves in my stomach, and I just let that be there. As I was practicing, I just let the nerves be there, and what I found is it starts to dissipate all by itself, and the layers get less intense. On the day of the TEDx talk, I was nervous, but it wasn't hijacking me that I was going to forget everything. It was the nerves that made me perform really well. So I use that process for everything.
That's so good. Can I ask you a cheeky question? As a body language expert standing on a stage presenting physically, were you conscious of your body language, talking about body language?
I wasn't. However, when I went to that emotions intelligence conference last week, there's a room full of behaviour analysts. And I sat there, and the first time I was like, oh, this is a room full of me. This is how other people feel. Then I just thought, do you know what? It's all good. I might be reading them. They might be reading me, but what's the worst that can happen? We'll have a bit of a laugh, a bit of fun with it. That's the only time I've gone like, oh, I now know how other people might feel around me.
And you're like, oh, I've got to check myself.
As long as I'm talking about my subject, I'm okay. Now, if you ask me to go and talk about a commercial plan for a global brand, then you would not see confident Adrianne, because that's not my skill set. I don't know how to do that. I wouldn't know how to put that across. Like, equally, I wouldn't present somebody else's material ever, because I'd lose my confidence, because it's not mine. I don't know where it's going. I don't know where it's come from. My confidence would be very different. So if anyone says, will you present my slides? The answer is always no. I'll either rewrite them, or no, you've got to present them yourself.
I know. I've made that mistake before, presenting other people's content. And it's usually last minute as well, which for me is like, double terror, because it's not only is it not my words, but I'm asked to do it really quickly, because I like to feel prepared and like to feel organized. And then I can completely go off. I'm not looking at questions and prompts and anything like that. but I feel comfortable with the content. So when it's someone else's, that's always really strange. But actually, you said it in your response was reword it so that it's you.
Yeah.
So take that content and make it Adrianne or make it Laura and turn it into something that gives you that comfort. Because sometimes in the reality of a business, someone's off sick or someone's away and you're asked to step in, and you do want to put your hand up and say, yes, I can do that. You know, you want to take these opportunities when they come, but it's finding the ways of doing that in a way that still feels genuine and authentic to you. As you've said, like your confidence comes from authenticity. So
I know my stuff.
Yeah.
That's where my confidence comes from. I know my stuff. And I've got a great question. I share this with everyone that I can stand in front of any audience and say any questions because I've prepared answer. That if someone asks me something I don't know, my answer is, that's a really interesting question. I've never been asked that before. And I don't know the answer to that, but I am going to go and find out because I want to know the answer to that now too. So I can never be caught out. So I'm not feeling worried about being caught out because if I don't know something, it's okay not to be perfect. I don't need to have the answer for everything, but I can go find it.
It's such a powerful unlock, isn't it? Turning from I have to be the expert in everything to I'm genuinely curious about the world and I'm always going to be learning. And if someone asks a great question I don't have the answer to, that's okay. And I can just say, I'm not sure, I'll find out. Or what do you think? Sounds like an interesting question. Have you got any experience? That's another nice one as well.
I like that.
To pull it out of other people as well is lovely. So what are the gems of wisdom would you share with our audience around body language? I'm doing it already. I'm like so conscious of my face and my hands.
Don't touch your face, first of all. When we touch our face, it's normally a sign of nerves.
Oh, really? Because the thing is with where I'm sat is I don't have anything to lean on. So sometimes I'm genuinely leaning in.
Okay. That's okay. That's like the thinker pose. You know, you've seen the statue of the thinker. That is what it means. One of the ones to watch out for is this in a meeting. If it starts out here, it's all good. The person is evaluating, they're interested, you've got their attention. However, the further the finger goes up the face, the evaluation is becoming more negative.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That's a really interesting one. And I've had so many people, that one went bonkers on TikTok. I've had so many people say, that's so true. But it is, I find myself doing it. You know, if I'm sitting there going like, this is not going well. Another one is the one-sided shoulder shrug. So we all know that means, I don't know. We do that. And someone does that and it's in line with the words, I don't know. They genuinely don't know. However, this, or it could be this, for me, it's always the left side when it happens because I can't stop myself from doing this. When I say something and that happens, whatever I've just said, I've got no confidence in it actually being true or going to happen. So, for instance, I hope none of my friends are watching this. For instance, I see some of my friends like, we're going out Friday night. Do you want to come? And I go, yeah, I'll probably be there. I'm not going to be there.
Not quite sure.
There's going to be a message in that WhatsApp group that says, yeah, I'm not coming out Friday night. I watch politicians do it all the time. When they're talking about policies that they don't fully believe in or they've been told to talk about, that shoulder goes. And it could be either side. Just for me, it's my left.
Yeah. Everyone's going to be able to unpick everyone from now on. But it's dangerous, right? Because as we said before, like there's some clear messages coming out there, but don't always assume, right? Because someone might be doing something that like I often do this because I'm leaning in and I'm like, want to be engaged and want you to feel, because you know when you're in a meeting and you lean forward, it's often a sign of engagement, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard to do that on Teams and on Zoom.
And what you got to remember with this one particularly is it doesn't mean they're lying. It just means they've got no confidence in what they've just said. So they may not be feeling it. It doesn't mean that they don't want to come or they don't like you. And context is king, because I could have been thinking about something else. I could have been thinking about the journey back from the traffic. And that could have been. So that's where questions for body language and facial expressions are so important. Because if I did that and my friends knew what that meant, they could say, you don't seem very sure about that Friday night. Is not Friday night a good night for you? Actually, do you know what? I'm really worried about the traffic. I think the traffic's going to be terrible. I'm coming back from London.
And I'll be there. Yeah.
I want to be there, but I'm just not sure I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
Always be checking. Don't ever assume anything. It's a good point.
So tell us about the impact on brand then. Tell us some of your favorite moments with brands. Either it's the questions they bring to you or the content they're sharing or the relationship you built with brand owners and how you're helping them with the work that they're doing. Tell us some of those favorite moments.
I work with a lot of global brands. I'm working with a global brand at the moment on training their AI that they're having built to act as a researcher. So they're calling it the Adribot because I'm training the bot to be more emotional, to pick up emotions better. Facial recognition software is not where we need it to be with AI yet. I'm sure it will probably get there. So I'm training the AI to be more responsive and be more human, which has been a really lovely project to work on. One of the things that brands can make a really quick win with for their key visuals is to stop showing neutral facial expressions in their brand images. It's such a quick win because people perceive neutral and put their own interpretation on it. Whereas the brand owners think, oh, well, I'm just being neutral, so I'm not drawing attention to the face because the object of the product is a necklace or it's a piece of clothing. But actually, as humans, we always look to the face first. Any eye tracking studies, where the eye go first, if there's a human in the image, the eyes are going to go to that human. So trying to make it neutral as a piece of not importance is the worst thing you can do, because they're going to look there anyway, and they're going to put their own interpretation of how the person feels. So that's a really quick win for brands. Be emotional. Even if you get the emotion wrong, some emotion is better than no emotion. No emotion, no hook, no attention. So even a wrong emotion for how you want shoppers and consumers to feel is better than none, because at least it will get attention.
I assume neutral is quite irrelatable as an expression, is it?
Yeah, it's nothing. People ignore it. It makes it really easy to ignore. Really
I was
easy.
going to say, well, ignoring and advertising is the worst word, right? If you've got a neutral
Absolutely.
expression and you're going to get ignored because of it, wow.
Yeah. And then optimizing your own body language for presentation skills. Even if you're just presenting to a few people, there are some really quick wins that brands can do. The negotiations between commercials. If you understand body language, it can make a big difference. For one of my clients, I have sat in some of their commercial meetings where they're presenting to the retailer, perhaps their new category development plan, and just being able to notice how the buyer or the other commercial team is feeling, and then adapting the offer still with what we want to get in or what we want to do, but tailoring it away with words to how it fits the other side emotionally is a really smart thing to do. But one of the brands I worked with got a new product into one of the retailers by me noticing some certain facial expressions around the product that they were talking about. And in the coffee break, I just said, you need to stop calling this product, change the language. Buyer was very happy. We've got a deal. Wow. This is not a soft skill. I get really cross when people say body language and facial expressions are a soft skill. Last week at the Emotional Intelligence conference, one of the headline speakers said, it's not a soft skill, it's a hard intelligence.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that too. And I was like, oh, I shall be using
what
that.
percentage of communication is nonverbal? Like, it's insane level, right?
Massive, yeah. Words are important. If I'm going to give you
Yeah.
directions to get to my house, you're going to need all of my words. My body language is not going to do me much good. However, when you're talking about thoughts and feelings and how someone feels about something, that's when we really need to be paying attention to body language, because it is a big chunk of the information.
Yeah. And again, the flip from talking functionally about a product, as you said, the directions to your house need to be technical, direct, specific, clear, understandable. But the emotional side of it, that's a different set of skills. That's a different set of language. And it's a different expression as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love brands to keep talking about emotions, because they are, but to really follow through with and really understand emotions and how it can drive the behavior that they want shoppers and consumers to take.
Why do you think brands don't follow through on emotion?
Because people don't understand it. Most people don't understand that. We're not taught at school or university to understand emotions. And brands themselves, if they're putting content out and the talent is showing fear or uncertainty, that's what it's going to spark in the shoppers and consumers. And then they're not going to take action, because in fear, we don't take action. We're paralyzed, fight or flight, we're off. So it's understanding what emotions mean, really, and how it's going to drive behavior. I would love that conversation to be had even more within brands.
I'm sure anyone listening will be having that conversation, because as you said, when you are shooting content and you have talent there, making sure that they're portraying the right emotion. Because as you said about the analogy with your friends, like, you might be thinking about the directions and driving somewhere. Like, you need to get the talent to be in the moment, present in that context, and have them portraying the emotions that you want. So there's a skill in that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our work meetings, we should all be more emotionally intelligent. And we're just not taught it. Unless someone goes out of their way to find out information on emotional intelligence, it's not taught. It's not part of the skill set that it really should be in business.
So from your psychotherapist training then, to take that into an organization, is there a couple of things that people could do to do that right now?
The best way to be emotionally intelligent within an organization is to listen, not judgmentally, no judgment, and to show empathy. And to show empathy is not sympathy. If someone's crying, we don't want sympathy. That doesn't work. That's a different situation. At work, we want empathy. Okay, explain to me what's made you so upset. So really listen to people. So that active listening, often reflect back the words that they use, and by doing that, they'll tell you loads more information, so you get an even fuller picture of what's going on for them, not what we think, for them. So listen non-judgmentally, and show empathy.
It's interesting because almost what you're implying there is that if we lack the emotions individually, that we lack the ability to do that through our storytelling with other people internally, but then
Totally.
critically for brand owners and business externally. So it's like, how do we get better at listening and emotional intelligence and genuine listening as well, like deep listening? And as you said, not just I'm hearing to answer. I'm hearing to respond.
Yeah, totally that. And by using the words that they use and reflecting back to them, you have to listen if you're going to use their words.
Yeah.
That's a really smart way of sort of keeping yourself on track with that, because we often hear something, and I'll say to people, so what I heard was, and I'll use the words, what I heard was da 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 da. And to me, it sounds like da 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 da, and offer it back to people. It's not, well, you just said this, and I think this means this, and so this, and that's your argument, that's your conflict. Whereas when you offer things back to people, you've got a really nice communication. And everything I do, it's all about how do we create great relationships, whether it's in the boardroom, on a key visual, whatever it is, how do we create great relationships?
And how do we give permission and license for people to genuinely express their emotions as well? Because British culture is very guilty of people say to you, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. It's like that can't be true. Like, we can't be fine. Fine feels like one of those empty words that doesn't mean anything. How do we actually give that person permission to share how they're genuinely feeling and ask it in a way that gives them permission and license?
Yeah. So there's two things to that. If you've picked up some cues and you don't even know what they are, but subconsciously you think they're not fine, you go, are you really? You can ask that, are you really? You can ask that nicely. However, we've also got to remember, so some of the workshops I do on emotions for businesses, I've got to remember that actually, if I get someone to open up too much, it might not be appropriate for the workplace.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line of like, what's the relationship? What's the context we're having this conversation in? Is it appropriate that I really get them to open up? Because we don't want people to overshare. Maybe in a one-to-one, we can go and do that. But in a group setting, we don't want people to overshare. We want it to be a safe space that they can share as much as they feel comfortable with, and that when they leave the room, they're still comfortable with what they've shared. So there is a fine line with that.
Yeah. So simple questions in terms of how you're feeling. And
and are you really?
Are you really? Yeah.
Really? I just get the sense that you might not be okay. Feel free not to tell me now, but I'm here if you need someone to talk to. You're giving them permission to come back. It might not be the right time for them. They might not want to share there and then, but you've opened the door and left it open for another time.
And in a brand context as well, we're back to the feelings question still, though, aren't we? Because it's like, what feelings do we want to invoke from this story? What are we trying to achieve? What emotions do we want? How do we want people to feel and react? And therefore, and often that isn't something that gets talked about. Right? There's the jobs to be done. There's the targets, the numbers, and the targeting. Sorry.
I'm so shocked where I go on a call and it's a pre-production call and there's 20 people on there talking about, should the sleeve be there or should the sleeve be there? Should the sleeve be there? And no one's talking about body language or facial expressions and emotions. And I'm like, sleeve's very important. However, how you're going to portray the emotions that you want people to feel is super important and it's going to be more useful than the sleeve length.
Yeah, wow. So in every pre-production meeting from now on, for everyone that's listening, you need to make sure you have a chapter, if not a good chunk of your conversation around emotions and feelings and what you're trying to portray in your advertising, and therefore how the talent should be and how they should act and how they should respond. Fantastic. We just need to parachute you in, Adrianne.
That's fine. That's good. I like travel.
Meetings. I do love those shoots though. It's really interesting. I remember there was a shoot once and there was this food scene and everyone's sharing. It was all about finger food and sharing and the joy of eating with your hands and stuff like that. And then at one point someone started throwing the food and everyone was like, oh, this is really fun. And I was like, no. I feel like you're trivializing now the food. Yeah. Like, yes, the moment is fun, but the food needs to have its key role, which is food is there to eat. It's not a plaything. Yeah. I remember sitting there going, no, this isn't right here. And I remember I was pretty junior at the time and I was like, I've got to say something because this
good for you.
I was like, this feels really, really wrong. Like, I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And if you felt like that, the audience would have felt like that. The consumer or the shopper would have felt like that too.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't throw something that was such a central part of the moment. No. And something that you're saying is such an important thing.
And that's the point, actually. Your gut instinct is often right. If it doesn't feel right, your gut instinct is often right. For whatever reason, you might even need to know the reason why it's not right, but it's not right.
Yeah, I do genuinely want to get someone on the podcast to talk about the ripple impact of the gut instincts. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to make that happen. I need to do a lot of Googling. because it keeps coming back to that in so many different ways and shapes and forms. Really interesting. There's so many questions I haven't asked you. I'm going to have to get you back on for part 2 because
That's fine, anytime.
so much to ask you. On the ripple impact, we ask everyone this final question because you've clearly been making waves in the industry. What advice would you give to aspiring wave makers?
Curiosity, and never stop learning. That curiosity has taken me down some really interesting, brilliant paths. I am a lifelong learner, so be curious. And if you do feel curious about something, follow that, because you just never know. I started with a book on faces 20 years ago, and that curiosity and reading that book led me onto so many different paths that has created a brilliant work life for me.
I love that. I love the simplicity of that answer as well. Thank you. Getting it to one thing is an art. So well done.
I don't actually think it's any more complicated than that. I actually really believe that.
Yeah.
Follow your curiosity. That's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Adrianne Carter, thank you so much for taking us behind the ripples of reinvention, authenticity, and human connection, from psychotherapist training to TikTok takeovers. Your story is proof that the smallest moments, a suggestion, a cup of coffee, a question can completely change your path. So for all our podcast listeners and YouTube watchers, Adrianne's story is a powerful reminder that confidence actually starts from within. It's not tips and tricks, it's how you feel, and then how that really shows in the way that you lead, in the way that you speak, and in the way you connect. So be open, stay curious, and never underestimate the ripple of a simple why not. That is a wrap on this Ripple episode. Don't forget to follow and subscribe, and let us know who you think should be on the podcast next. Tune in for more weekly bold voices and inspiring wave making guests. I'm Laura Barber. This is the Ripple Impact. Adrianne, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you next week. Thanks, Adrianne.
Thank you.
Bye for now.